Now that we've seen how to create these custom contact sheets and picture packages which we're going to print, let's see how we can combine our images together to create some stunning web photo galleries using Photoshop's automation features. So I'm going to go ahead and close this image up by using Command W on the Mac, Control W on the PC. I'll go ahead and select Don't Save, and I'm going to navigate back to the Adobe Bridge simply by Alt tabbing or Command tabbing back over there. And I'm going to go into my Chapter 5 Project Files folder and select the folder inside of there labeled WPG, which stands for Web Photo Gallery. When I open that up, you should see a series of flower images in here. And so I'm just going to grab those images and select them all by shift-clicking across the board like so. And once I have those selected, I'm going to come back up to the Tools menu. I'm going to choose Photoshop again. And at the very bottom of this dialog box, I will select Web Photo Gallery. That's going to launch this dialog box here inside of Photoshop. And much like the other dialog boxes, you have the ability to choose your source images here. And for this particular set of images, as we know, we launched this from Bridge, so we had more control over these. And we only are using the selected images from Bridge as opposed to an entire folder. That's just another way that we gain a little bit extra control. Now the big thing we need to pay attention to is up here at the top for the styles of our web photo gallery. Now unfortunately the preview window in this dialog box is extremely small, as you see here on the right hand side, so you're not going to get a very decent preview of exactly what type of gallery you're getting. That's just one of the hindrances of this dialog box. There's nothing really you can do about that. No way to expand that window or anything like that, so we're just kind of stuck with what we have. But there are a few good templates that are listed inside of these styles. So just cycle through here. You can take a look. You get a fairly decent thumbnail view of what this is going to look like to give you an idea of exactly what type of orientation the images are going to be in and so forth. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick from these images here just one of these default horizontal thumbnail views here, maybe even the horizontal neutral style here. I can even set my email here, so I'll go ahead and type in photos@seelymedia.com like so. And then we have the ability, of course, to set our source images, which we've already done. So I'm going to come down now to my options panel down here. And in the general options dialog box, you have the ability to change the file extension for the web page itself. So I'm just going to switch this to HTML instead of HTM. That's just a personal preference, of course, no big deal there. I'm going to leave the rest of these attributes as they are by default. And then we're going to then switch from the general preferences to the banner preferences here. So now you have the ability to adjust the site name. So I can just call this Justin's Pics. Photographer here. Since I don't know who actually took these photographs originally, I can just go ahead and type in unknown like so. And then date created, of course, we could just leave that as a random date as created here. And now we're ready to go ahead then and switch to another set of options. Now you will notice at the bottom of this panel here, before I switch over to these next set of options, you're going to notice here that some of these options throughout these dialog boxes are going to be grayed out. That's because depending on which template you chose at the very beginning of this, you are going to not be able to have control over some of these options. That's just one of the things that's kind of a drawback with this particular form of creating web pages. But in the end, it's a fair trade-off because we get some pretty decent web pages created here for us without having to do a whole lot of work. So I'm going to go ahead now. We'll change over to the large images portion of this, so you have the ability to control how big the actual large images will look on your screen. So I'm just going to change these from medium to large. We'll constrain the proportions. My JPEG quality, I'm going to set that to high because I'd like to see some pretty high quality JPEGs on the web when I'm viewing my photographs and such. Now you can also add a border to these photographs. I'm not going to choose to do so, but you could add a border to these if you wanted to. Then you also have the ability to turn titles on. For instance, you could use the file name, or you could use the title of the document, which you could set in the file info portion of Photoshop. I haven't set any titles for these, so I'm not going to check that checkbox, and I'll just leave the file name turned on just to give you a little bit of an example as to what those titles are going to look like underneath those photographs there. Now let's go ahead, we'll switch to the thumbnails view here. We have the ability also to control the size of the thumbnails as well. In this case, I'll leave those at the medium setting of 75 pixels. Now you don't get the ability to control the columns and rows for this particular set of images. That's because it's one single row that goes across the bottom, as you can see here. Now you can also control the border size of the thumbnails here. I'm not going to choose to give these a border this time, but you could if you wanted to. And you'll also notice that you get no control whatsoever over the bottom half of these options here. It's just one of those things, depending on which template you chose at the very beginning, these options may or may not be grayed out. So then we'll go ahead, we'll change to custom colors here, and you have the ability to control most of the aspects of this image. You cannot change the background color, unfortunately. As you see there, that option is grayed out, but you could change the color of the banner, the text, the active link, the link, and the visited link. So if you wanted to change those, you could. I'm not going to change those right now. I'll just leave those as the defaults just to save a little bit of time here. And now we're also going to take a look at the security tab. Now inside the security tab, you can say underneath the content window that you want to have custom text applied to these and so forth, but we're not going to apply any type of custom text or security options here, mostly because all of these options are grayed out to us in this particular template that we chose. So we're just going to leave those alone. You could certainly set all these up if you wanted to, or if you had the option to, but we don't for this particular set, so we won't then go ahead and add any of these options. Now the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over and select a destination right here underneath the Include All Subfolders tab, and once inside the Select the Destination dialog box, what we need to do is navigate to our Chapter 5 Project Files folder, select the WPG folder in there, and once we have that folder selected like I have here, go ahead then and click Choose, and there you'll see the relative path that relates to that folder with the WPG folder. And now we're ready to go ahead and say OK, and Photoshop will go through and create our web photo gallery for us, and once it's finished it will automatically launch that web photo gallery into our default browser like you see here. So here is our web photo gallery that we created here. As you can see, there's our title, Justin's Pics, unknown author. There's the random date and also the email address that we entered in there. Now you can cycle through all of these photographs simply by clicking on the little navigational arrows here. You can scroll up and down for the photographs that are a little large. You'll also notice that here are the titles that we had that correspond to the file names down here at the bottom of these images here. So just navigate through all of these, make sure all the images came in properly, and then you'll be well on your way to creating stunning web photo galleries using Photoshop's automation commands. And in the very next lesson, we'll take a look at how we can take this a little bit further and customize these photo galleries with our own custom logo.